Hello everybody, my name is Kyle Forster, and today joining me is my audience, my sister Hannah Forster and my father John Forster, and they're just going to be sitting over there while I give my speech.
Alright.
So I know I mentioned in the earlier discussion that I was going to talk about science and the scientific budget, and more specifically NASA and how it's going to apply, but I realized that I wasn't as passionate about that subject as I am about music education, more specifically in the school system. And so I'm going to talk about the music education system being removed or the budgets being cut and why they shouldn't be. Now, as everybody knows, the federal budget is getting lower and lower, and more cuts are being made and throughout different departments and different agencies that the government has authority over. And currently, the NASA budget is 0.48% of the national budget. And this goes down every year. It reached its peak in the 60s at roughly 4.4%, but ever since then, it's been decreasing because ever since the Columbia shuttle incident in 2003, there's been kind of a not as much of a demand because it's really dangerous and the results aren't necessarily uh, providing a good source of the income and all the resources and effort that's being put into it. So the government took this chance to critically analyze all of the departments that they have control over and kind of look over everything and seeing that if all the agencies and the departments and all of the budgets are being allocated to the right places, and if they are in fact providing enough of a service that provides a good source of the means of everything that's being put into it. Now, with the science or with the music education system, a lot of people are looking at removing it because when the government decides that they're going to remove a certain amount of budget from the school systems have to decide what to do with that money. And so a lot of the school systems decide to keep sports, keep the social studies, the science, the English, the math, because those are all really crucial. But one thing that's more of optional is the arts, the musics, and foreign languages. Now, foreign languages are pretty necessary because as the world keeps growing, everybody becomes more interconnected. People with foreign languages and multiple languages are more hireable because they have more experience and more things that other people want. Now, art and music, that's more of a personal thing, and not everybody is looking for people who are, let's say, talented musicians or very talented artists, because it's more of something that you do in your free time or something that you enjoy doing. Now, this is really not the case because when it comes down to it, music education does more than just provide actual music education. Studies show that there's approximately a 28% increase of SAT scores and other standardized testing scores from students who have a music education, more specifically piano education, than students who don't have an education. And this is because when a student learns an instrument, they have to learn how to read notes. And when somebody does read notes, for example, this, you look at the lines, and each note you have to play for a specific amount of time, and you either have to use your right hand or your left hand and any number of the 10 fingers to play the specific note or the chords. And of course, that's treble clef and that's bass clef. And you have to decide which one, if you're going to cross your hands over, if you're going to play it with your middle finger or your pinky finger, anything along those lines. And so students who have experience doing this learn to think under pressure and learn to critically think and kind of strategize and look ahead and multitask. And that's why music education is really, really strong, and it helps people get in touch with their artistic sides and their musical sides. And this is seen a lot in today's society and today's culture because a lot of the architecture that comes around is really artistic, and people aren't looking for just the same old skyscraper buildings made out of pure glass going up 50 stories, nothing kind of bland to them. A lot of people are looking for the architecture that stands out because that brings in more business, because people say, oh, that looks really interesting. I wonder what they're selling. And then when they find out they're selling a good product, they usually go in and it brings in revenue. And so that's one reason why art is really desired in the culture, even though for the public school systems that's not really a main priority, because in order to be a good architect, yes, you have to be creative, however you have to also be really good at math and have all these other prerequisites that really come more important than actual art itself, because that's something you can teach yourself through either looking at a bunch of things or reading a lot of books, looking at a lot of images, anything along those lines, and just experience itself will provide a lot of creativity. Now, I'm going to talk about my personal experience with music education and why I personally feel very passionately about this, because when I was in elementary school, I was chosen to be in the chorus, and I never really thought much of it because we used to go to our music class every Wednesday, just once a week, which goes to show that even back then, 10 years ago, budget cuts were still being made, and music classes just weren't being held as often as normal classes. And when I did go to the music classes, I never really thought much of it, and I never really thought that, I was going to use this in the future, and it was fun to play around with, especially everybody enjoyed playing the kind of ethnic drums where we would just tap to a beat, nothing super complicated because we were really just in 5th grade, 9 years old. But it was really fun, and I didn't realize it until later that it really did have an effect on me, because since then I became a drummer in middle school, and I've noticed that I'm a lot more math and science oriented, and that my critical thinking skills are higher than what they would be if I wasn't into math, because when I do play the drums, I usually improvise a lot. And a lot of drums is keeping time, keeping tempo, kind of doing fills randomly, and just kind of having a structure to an unstructured thing. Now, this wouldn't be possible if I wasn't into music education, and if I never had that class, I probably wouldn't be a drummer, and I probably wouldn't be really science oriented, and I wouldn't be looking at science as a future career. Now, when it comes down to it, when I did join chorus, it was a really enjoyable experience, even though now I cannot sing nearly as well as I could back then, even by 5th grader standards. But it really did affect me because it gave me a deeper appreciation for music of all kinds. Now, personally, everybody has their own preferences, but you can always appreciate other people's styles of music. So, let's say I do appreciate rock more than because I do play drums, but other people do appreciate country or classical, and I know how to appreciate those because I had the music classes and I knew what I was looking for when I was going to appreciate this kind of music. Now, some are more lyrical oriented, such as like rap and pop music, and others are more musical oriented and like instrumental, such as classical and jazz and a little bit of country. Now, a lot of people say, oh, well, if music education is so important, why do we see entertainers who aren't really musically oriented? They just have other people write the music for them, write the lyrics for them, and they just go on stage and repeat what they've heard, and all they have to do is kind of put a voice to the words and the tempo that other people have structured for them. Yeah, entertainers are just entertainers, and that's what they will be, but in order to sing that well, in order to have that kind of style and that sort of a touch, you have to be somewhat musically oriented and musically talented. Now, even though music education may not get the funding that it deserves, I think being a part of the school system is still really important, because without it, the standardized test scores would be lower. A lot of kids would be missing out on their passions or discovering them later when it's too late and they've missed their chance to make it big or missed their chance to really pursue it as a lifelong dream. And even though I know the budget probably won't be allocated to public schools over other things such as military contracts or other sorts of budgets that are more important at the moment, if sometime in the future they does get an increased budget, I think we will be a good step in the direction of increasing the public school systems.